Welcome to the final session of the Unfair Advantage small group video curriculum. We created this resource to help you in community to work out all of those unfair scenarios in life and see God use it for a greater advantage than you could ever have imagined. Today, we are going to really recap the story and show you how you can really apply it to the purpose that God has for your life. But before I get into that, let me just say this. I love to hear the stories of life change that have happened from the book or maybe even from these videos. So let me know. You can let me know on social media or on aaronberg.com, and that will really help and encourage me to know what God has done through this book. Well, the story of Joseph has been incredible. We've looked at a young man who received a vision from God. And it's such a story of all of our lives that God has a purpose and a destiny for each of us. And I just want to look right at that camera and say this. Let me tell you, you are not an accident. You are not a coincidence. God has a destiny in your life. You might have been overlooked by man, but God has been doing something in your life that one day it will make sense. And I'm telling you, trust him. Trusting God means that we trust his plan and his timing. So I know it might seem to be taking longer than you want it to take, but that doesn't mean the dream is dead. It just means God's developing it behind the scenes. And that's what he did with Joseph. His brother rejected him at 17 years old. They took him, threw him into a cistern. They sold him into slavery. He gets purchased by Potiphar. Potiphar's wife comes onto him and he has to choose integrity. He gets wrongfully accused, thrown into prison, is in prison for about 8 years before he comes up to the cupbearer and the baker. They promise to help him. The cupbearer forgets about him and he stays in prison another 2 years. So 10 years total in prison. Finally gets promoted in front of Pharaoh. And then as he's promoted in front of Pharaoh, Pharaoh gives him one job to focus on, which is to save the country. And it's so interesting how God uses his life. Well, the story kind of wraps up with Joseph now reconfronting his brothers who he hadn't seen since he was 17 years old. I mean, do the math. You got 13 years of this moment where he's kind of behind the scenes away from his family. And then you got another 7 years that he's prepared. So that's 20 years total. Plus, we know this is years into the time where he actually has the food in the famine. So you're probably 20 plus years into this that he hadn't seen his brothers at all. And then he has this moment where he's able to confront his brothers and they think he's going to kill him. And I wonder, what would you do to those people who rejected you so much? What would you do with those people who abused you and neglected you and hurt you so much? You have a moment to forgive, to let go, to really understand that as terrible as it was, that even God can use that painful scenario for a greater good. Or your solution is that you can be bitter, vengeful, act out in anger. Well, Joseph made a decision. He would love his brothers. And the Bible says it this way in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. It's kind of the closing of the entire story. Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid." And they probably were afraid because they thought he'd kill them. "Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Let me just pause right there for just a second. All that's gone on in your past, all that the enemy has tried to do to your life, all that those people have done to your life, it was intended to harm you, but God had a greater purpose. God had a greater destiny for you. So I want to encourage you in this today. Don't get bitter about it. Be encouraged that there is a greater purpose. And the greater purpose was what? The saving of many lives. Joseph was promoted and blessed for a purpose. The pain had a purpose, but so did the promotion. Can I say it this way to you? There is a purpose for every promotion in your life. There's a reason that you have gotten blessed the way you've gotten. There's a reason your business has grown the way it's grown. There's always a reason why that you've gotten recognized. And when you're at this moment and you have this tendency to go, wow, look what I did. Look who I am. Look at the power that I have. That's where Joseph had this moment to say, am I in the place of God? Is this about me? It's not about me. It's for God's glory. It's for God's honor. Every blessing in your life is not meant for you. It's meant for the glory of God. We do not exist for ourselves. We exist for God. And you will never make sense of life if you're the focus of it. But if God's the focus of it, if his mission is the focus of it, then you will understand that there's a purpose behind everything that's going on, both the pain and the promotion in my life. So I want to challenge you in this. Use your platform for a greater purpose. You see, we learn from our struggles. We understand that our struggles can be leveraged for a greater good. But we also have to understand that your platform is for a greater good, that it's for the saving of many lives. God left you on this planet to make an impact in people's lives. There's a purpose for you, to bring him glory through the ministry that we are called to do to the people around us. That is why you were left on this planet. 2 Corinthians 5:20 says it this way: we are therefore Christ ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. So we implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. You see, when you get saved for a purpose. Your purpose is to glorify God. And how do we live that out? We live that out by making an impact in the people around us. That's what Joseph did. He made it a purpose to say, you know what? I'm going to use what I've been through, and I'm going to use the platform for the purpose that God has for my life. So how do we know the purpose that God has for us? Why are we on this planet? Well, I've always learned that the way we figure out our purpose is we look at a couple different things. First of all, we look at our personality. You see, the way God designed us reveals our destiny. You're wired, or you could say it this way, you're weird on purpose. So your personality reveals a lot of why God put you on the planet and what his purpose is for you. But also you combine it with your passions. Your passions are usually the thing you're gifted at. What is that thing that makes you wake up in the morning and get excited? That passion has a purpose to it. So if you look at your personality and you look at your passions, they would tell you, man, you can really walk into the purpose that God has. But I would add a third one on there. It's not just your personality and your passions, but the third part of this is it's your pain. Your pain is connected with your purpose. You see, when you mix all three of these with God's power, you're unstoppable. So I look at my life and I go, God, thank you for my personality, the way you made me. Thank you for my passions, the things that make me excited. And even thank you for my pain, because my pain is the entry point to the purpose you have for me. And when I combine all three of those with God's power, I'm able to walk into God's plan for my life. You see, life is not about what happens to you. It's about how you handle what happened to you. And if you will decide to take that pain and use it for God's glory, I'm telling you, you'll make a difference in the world today. You might impress people with your strengths, but you impact them with your struggles. And I know that no matter what you've been through, it's part of your greater story of what Joseph said, the saving of many lives. So here's some questions to reflect on as we close. What's that dream from God that you've stopped dreaming? Dream again. Here's the second question. How are you dealing with that rejection? Have you gotten that unforgiveness and bitterness out of your heart? It's time to use that rejection as redirection to what God has for you. Despite your pay, how's your work ethic going? Well, nobody recognizes me. God's watching you. Here's another question. Are you maintaining your integrity? Are you doing the right thing even when nobody's looking? Here's another one for you. What opportunities are you embracing during this season? Are you staying encouraged to not quit? Keep going after God? Keep going after his purpose? And then what is God trying to get you to focus on right now? I promise you, it involves making a difference in the world today. I know that pain is not anything that we all ask for. None of us are sitting there going, I hope I experience pain today. But I want to remind you, your pain has a purpose. If you'll submit your pain to God, if you'll submit even your future to the Lord, then one day you're going to be able to look back on your past frustrations and your past disappointments, and you're going to be able to say, they intended to harm me, but God intended it for what is now being accomplished, this saving of many lives. Imagine the impact that can happen through your pain. You went through it. Now use it for a greater good. And I want to challenge you with your group today. talk about some next steps. What are some ways that you could practically use your pain to impact other people's lives? Don't waste the hurt. There's always a purpose to it. It might not make sense here on this earth, but one day when we get to heaven, we're all going to have this aha moment to where we can see clearly that everything that was unfair was for my advantage. God was working behind the scenes.